Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the League of Women Voters Deerfield area program for October. And our guest this evening is Art Wild from an organization in Deerfield called Go Green Deerfield. And what is very exciting about this organization is how people have come together from the community that shared some interests and were able to form an organization and make such progress in a short amount of time. Art is, we had expected to have Camilla Daddy this evening, who is also a co-founder with Art, and she had a family emergency and she was unable to attend. So Art is pitching in at the last minute. We really appreciate it, but he certainly is knowledgeable because he's been there from day one. He is a co-founder of Go Green Deerfield. It was founded in 2018. He is an interested and concerned 25-year Deerfield resident with a family and is looking forward to telling you about this wonderful organization. So Art, thank you very much.
Thank you, Rosemary. And I really wish you all had the opportunity to hear from Camilla directly, because she's just she's got great energy. She's one of our founding members, and she just is so much a part of our success and the fun that we've had so far. So I will do my best to fill those shoes, and we'll just we're really grateful to have the opportunity to share a little bit about who we are and how we came to be. And I'm really looking forward to the questions portion, because I love dialogue, and I'd be happy to share anything that would be helpful to you. So this is who we are, and Go Green Deerfield, and we started, just by background, about 3 years ago, June of 18, as Rosemary already said. And I think when I think about those 3 years, I'm like, wow, has it been 3 years already? Time really flies with when as a group, because we've been doing so much together. But when I go back to those start from when we first started, hindsight being 2020, I've got a very clear view of how things went. But in the moment, they were really just, I'd use the term, just unfolding. And we started when I was all around town looking. I woke up to climate change and what's going on and the urgency and the impact on our kids. And I said, I have to plug in and do something somewhere. And I was looking in all of the surrounding towns. And then one day I met a guy named George McClintock, who happened to be a Deerfield resident too. And he was doing the same thing I was. And we asked each other, it's like, well, what are we doing here? Why don't we go back to Deerfield and see what's going on there? And all we did was we started talking to people and sharing. It's like, hey, this is what we're seeing is going on with the climate. Are you as alarmed as we are? What can we do? We're just residents in a small town, and what can we do, and who do we do it with? And that's just how we started. And once we had more than just a few people initially, we got together and said, okay, maybe we should form a group, and let's see who's interested, and let's go. And along the way, it wasn't called Go Green Deerfield right away, but along the way, we became Go Green Deerfield. And what I would say is, at that early stage, it was so tempting to just go in and say, let's get going and do something now, have a program, have an event, and let's get people doing something. But what we did is we resisted that temptation and said, let's just take a step back and ask ourselves some really important questions, so that we feel like not only that we're doing something, but it actually adds up to making a difference and making a meaningful difference. So I'm sharing these questions here because these are main ones that we're asking ourselves. And the first one is like, well, who are we? And what's the work that we want to do in the world? And that we spent probably at least a couple months on. And even when we move forward to the next question, we continue to revisit that and refine it, because it's so easy to move on to just reacting to what's here in the moment and getting off track. And we wanted to, again, feel like we were working towards something as opposed to just doing a variety of things. And then from there, the next question was, well, what is it that we want to accomplish? And that's where goals come in. And then next is, well, okay, now that we have this goal, where do we focus? Where are we going to make the greatest impact? So that, because we're a small group and we had limited resources, including time, and we said, let's make sure that whatever we do, we're doing it in focused ways so that, again, it amounts to something. How do we organize ourselves? What kind of a structure do we want? And that was fun because we didn't want to be just a corporate boxy kind of a organization. So we played with that a bit. Who do we partner with was an important question. And then lastly, how do we connect with our community? So this is it. This is what I'm here to talk to you about. And Camilla put this presentation together, by the way, and this is the outline of how Go Green Deerfield came to be what it is today. And today we have a core group of about 9 people. There's another 6 or so that are kind of in and out. We have a newsletter now. Don't exactly have the latest numbers, Camilla has them, but I know we have at least a few hundred people on our newsletter list. And I believe we're in the low thousands with social media, people that are interested in just communicating out there with messaging and it's just to share what's happening out there. So it's grown quite a bit. And so from here, let me just go into how what these questions, what it led to. And the first one is who we are and what's our work in the world. That's all about our purpose. And vision and mission. Every organization has something like this. What's our vision and what's our mission? And for us, we wanted to keep these really simple and portable and meaningful. So our vision was, we just want sustainability to be the norm in our town, not something that we chase and hopefully get there one day. We just want it to be a normal part of everyday life. And the mission that we set out on is we want to inform and inspire our community to reduce our carbon footprint. And what I'll say about this is, again, every organization I've been in has had a vision, has had a mission. But what we made sure we did at this point was, let's keep coming back to this and use it as a guide, not just let it go on the piece of paper that we spent all this time on and it gets filed and we all go off and go. We kept coming back to this along the way. Okay, what should we do? Should we do a letter writing campaign for this idea? Well, let's go back. Is that part of our mission? Is that who we are? We're focused on Deerfield. Should we be spending a lot of time at the state level, at the national level? It helped guide us, and it helped have some really productive conversations to keep us going in a direction that we all felt like, again, was adding up to something that's meaningful and build on itself. The next question is like, well, what do we want to accomplish? That's where a goal was born. And our goal was to reduce Deerfield's greenhouse gas emissions 45% by 2025, carbon neutral by 2050. That's quite a goal. And what we decided to do, one of our tenets is, let's not recreate the wheel. So this goal came from IPCC, which is an arm of the UN. It's basically the climate group internationally that you hear about in the news. And they're the ones that are saying we need to limit global warming by 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030. And because after 2030, if we don't cut our greenhouse gases in half, this says 2025, but by 2030, if we don't cut it in half, we reach a tipping point where there's this domino effect that the global temperatures kind of go off on their own, and that's where the climate gets really wonky. So, but we said this is our goal, or that's their goal. Let's just adopt their goal. So this became another guiding piece to the types of things that we did. So then we said, okay, if this is our goal, where do we focus? The third question on that list. And for that, everybody had all kinds of ideas. Everybody, it could have been, we want to have people hang their clothes in the backyard instead of using a dryer. We want people to recycle more. We had all sorts of ideas, and we said, well, hang on a second. Let's go to the data and see what that tells us. So we spent, again, at least 3 months diving into data, and this is something that's become who we are. We're always going to the data, say, what's the data tell us, and where do we want to focus? Or not where do we want to focus, but where should we focus, again, to make the biggest impact? And one of the biggest findings for us was really outlining, using data to graphically show where's our carbon footprint, or what is our carbon footprint. And this simple little pie chart took a long time to get the data to a point where we believe what it says. It felt like it was on strong footing, and it also tells a story. It's actionable. And so what this told us, like, boy, of all the zillions of things that could be done out there, the ones that are going to make the biggest impact, you're looking at it with me, electricity. It's 35% of our carbon footprint. That's a lot. And that's why you hear so much about green renewable energy and the power in the energy sector. Natural gas is behind that. And actually, I'm going to go around this way with it on purpose, is that, that's the energy side together is half of the pie. Transportation, food, and waste. Those are the next 3 areas that we saw as very important that we focus on. The last one is a big chunk, and you may be wondering, why am I talking about that one last? That's about goods and services. And that's the area where that's just what we buy and what we consume. And we felt that's a huge piece, but we're going to focus on the other parts of the pie, because we felt like our work, who we are, and the resources we have, those we could make meaningful strides, and we'll work our way up to that other one. So I'm sharing this just to say how we use the data, how we prioritize, and it's not always the biggest that necessarily makes it to the top. In this case, the second biggest didn't make it to the top, because it was, again, we went back to our mission and vision and who we are and what we're capable of, and we knew our limits. And that also, this is how we married the early parts of who we are and all that work early on, married it with the data as it came to be. This is just to show more data. We use data in everything we use, and we want to always compile in a way so that it tells a story and it's actionable. So just a quick example here. It's okay, electricity, great. Well, where do we focus with that? Because there's residential, small commercial, large commercial, and municipal. So this data analysis showed us, oh, small commercial is a huge part of this, as well as residential, because in our minds, we're thinking, oh, just residential, that's a third of the pie. It's big, but it also brought to light some other areas that we weren't really thinking of. And it also helped us organize how you could approach the getting renewable energy in different sectors of the community. And so this organized it for us. Here's 4 areas. It told us probably going to talk to residents differently. We're going to talk to small commercial, we'll talk differently to large commercials and municipal. So the data, once again, is something that's really helpful for us as we go forward, and has really made a big difference in terms of sharing initiatives with the community in a credible, believable way. It wasn't just our opinion. And here's just one last example I'll show. This is Camilla's been doing a lot of work on the ecosystem focus area. And this shows how you bring together a goal. It talks about the ecosystem. It says, okay, here's our goal, and what's the little fact about that. So tree canopy is a focus area. It's about 40% of our ground cover. We think if we focus on trees, we could bring about this much more, 6,313 megatons per year out of the greenhouse gas emissions. Great. So we're bringing goals, initiatives, and measurable outcomes all in one document. So this is an example of how we're bringing together plans. So what we did is that pie chart, going back to that, we said, well, if those are the big focus areas to make a difference, to make the biggest impact, why don't we organize ourselves around those? So we like to think of our structure. This is how we organized ourselves as a tree. We said, well, each of the areas, what if we viewed the branches of those trees as a distinct focus area? So green energy or the ecosystem, they each have their own branch. And then the leaves, those are members of the community that come together and really work together to nourish that branch to say, okay, what is it that we want to accomplish with the ecosystem, for example, and what are the goals, and what are the initiatives that can make the biggest difference? So this is how we've simply organized ourselves. We thought this was a lot more interesting than the corporate boxes that I've been used to in the past. And what we liked about this is that all of these branches come together to a central trunk that is where we all come together once a month and meet and say, what are we each doing, and sharing accomplishments, sharing challenges, and we really try to help each other out. And that trunk of the tree, if you remember, every tree has roots, and we see this tree being rooted in the community. So anybody in the community is welcome to join this tree in any of these branches. And then as the branches extend to the sky, we see that's where the stakeholders in the community, like our village, government and staff, the schools, the park district, organizations like the League of Women Voters, anybody that would benefit from being a part of this effort. So that's how we like to think about our structure. And that's been really helpful in helping us focus on what we wanted to focus on. The other question that we put out to ourselves is, well, who do we partner with? And this is about building relationships. And this is where we really spent a lot of time. And the biggest, where we spent the most time is really working with the village of Deerfield, both on the staff as well as the board of trustees. And I see Barbara out there. Hello, Barbara. I got to meet people like Barbara and people that have a passion for, boy, what can we do to be more sustainable? And we really valued that input, and we used that common shared value and common interest to start a relationship that has just continues to grow over these past 3 years. And I think one of the things that we really kept front and center with that relationship in particular is really understanding what it is that what the needs are across the table, so to speak. So from a board of trustees standpoint, I don't know how many conversations I had with Bill Seiden, and I think Janie's on. Hello, Janie. And he said, well, what is it that you want to do? He said it over and over again. It's like, where do you fit in? He was trying to understand how we fit in. This Go Green Deerfield group fits in with the municipality. And we went round and round so many times. And then eventually we got to a point where, oh, this is how this could work. And through those conversations, it was less about where it landed. It's more about the many conversations that we had. We were learning about each other along the way. And I was learning about how the board works and their interaction and relationship with the staff. And he was learning about what we're doing and what we cared about and the type of people that we are. And those are the types of conversations that we've had with most of our trustees, staff at the village manager level and assistant village manager, Kent and Andrew, as well as some of the other the groups within staff. So it was all about really spending time to understand what is it that you understand each other's worlds, and not just do it in a transactional way and okay, I understand you and let's, so we could get this one thing done. It was really something that would just grow over time and continue to learn about each other. And then we'd work in the initiatives in a way that would that we each were looking to pursue. And it's like, how can these things come together? So I think that's it. It was just very sincere and curious and interested to say, how can we help each other? Because by the way, we're all residents in the same community, and it seems like we're overlapping in all these areas. So like, very sincerely, it's like, how do we do this? You know, help us understand what you need, and here's what we're looking at. How can we do this together? And it's a truly a complementary, collaborative relationship, and I think that's why it continues to grow today. And here's some other areas where we've partnered with the Park District. Bob Morgan, he's always been a big supporter, and he sponsored one of the co-sponsors, I believe, of CEJA, which recently passed, Clean Energy Jobs Act. And then Go Green Illinois is a group that helps us connect with all of the surrounding communities so that we could share what we're all doing, so we can learn from each other that way too. And then there was another question we asked ourselves towards the end, is like, how do we connect with our community, you know, our residents? And that's where we brought in people that know all about social media, which is not me. And how do we do that in these modern days? And how do we do it in a way that connects face to face, which was a huge challenge and really had to be pushed aside during the pandemic, like many of us. But that picture you see in the upper right is the farmers market, when we were allowed to go there. And then there's other ways that we communicate face to face that even with the pandemic, we've adapted COVID safe events, you know, like cleanups and cleanup events, and doing things that are, here's an example in the bottom right of what we did with asking families, like, when you go solar, you know, post a picture on social media. So that's more of a social media example. And here's a hybrid on the bottom where we have a neighborhood ambassador program where we put up signs in our yard and say, hey, if you have any questions about composting or any of this sustainability things that you're hearing about, ask me. And we could chat on the street and in a safe way and connect and get questions answered and spread the word. So these are just some ways of how we've been connecting with the community. So this slide is titled we have ideas to achievement. And when I look at achievement, it looks like, oh, this is what Go Green Deerfield has achieved. And really, I would rephrase that to say, this is what has happened since Go Green Deerfield has formed and has been part of with all of the all the partnerships and relationships that we've had and conversations that we have. This is just a result of us having focused conversations and having sincere conversations and initiatives with people over the past 3 years. And because I look at this list and it's like, wow, we have done a lot, has happened. And so we were formed in June of 18. That's an event right there that we actually came together. And one of the first things that happened with our village board is that through the education process of what's going on. And so one of the outcomes of that was Village of Deerfield made a proclamation that we acknowledge that climate change is something that we really need to address for our community, and sustainability, and laid out cutting our greenhouse gas emissions in half, and that made that proclamation publicly. And Barbara was a part of that too. So once again, thanks, Barbara, for helping us make that come to be. I think it's just a matter of we all knew we wanted something like that, and then we just helped find the words in the way. Another big outcome is green electricity aggregation, and aggregation is where the village of Deerfield, along with others, I think there's 7 other communities, work together to purchase electricity for the communities and to get price breaks and so on. And when we started working around the question, I was like, well, can that be renewable energy? And just that question and the research and working together and collaborating led to a recent contract being awarded. I think it was awarded now. I'm trying to remember all the timing, but it's basically leading to 48% of our households being on renewable energy. That's huge. And I can't tell you how proud I am to see that our community is doing that. And the domino effect of that has affected 5 other communities that have similar impact. So what we're doing here is spilling over to other communities too. So that makes me proud as well. This other one, I'll go through these quickly, but community solar is another. If you heard of solar farms, there's about 113 households that have signed up for that. Curbside composting is another big one. For those that are in Deerfield, have this 3rd bin at the curb. That is a 5-year contract with a year-round curbside composting program that is stronger than what Boulder, Colorado, the green of the greens in this country, have. So that's another product of all this sharing information and trying to see what is it that we could offer that's really going to get our greenhouse gas reductions reduced. And we're only 6 months in, and we have 35% household penetration or participation, which is a big deal because a lot of people don't even realize why it's there and why it's important and even how to do it. And so we're going to build on this, but very strong out of the gate. Very recently, and actually next week on this day, the village just formally created a working group to say, okay, now that we've done some of these other things, let's formally create a plan and take no more than 6 months to do that. And then let's focus on implementing what else we want to do to reduce our carbon footprint in half by 2030, because we've got a lot to do. So there's a 7-person group that the mayor just appointed, and we're meeting for the first time next week. There's some events, Chicago River Days, sustainable yard tours, and this is about, again, bringing people together to work towards a common goal, but also build community. So there's a lot of legs to this thing that we didn't necessarily see or plan for exactly, but this is that unfolding to come full circle that I talked about earlier. And our biggest thing is just, let's stay focused on who we are. What is it that we're looking to accomplish? Where's our focus areas? And keep building the relationships that those of shared values so that we can get there together, and then work with our community to really see this come to be. And so that's Go Green Deerfield in 30 minutes. And before we get to questions, I would be remiss if I didn't answer the question that I'm sure is on everyone's mind is, well, gee whiz, how can I reduce my carbon footprint? And right off the bat, I could tell you that green electricity, if you go to this link, northshorecommunitysolar.com, that's an easy way to reduce your carbon footprint. Remember, that was 1/3 of the pie. You go to that link and you could actually subscribe to a solar farm, which is also called community solar, in a matter of weeks. It's just, there's no panels going on your roof. They're sitting in a farm somewhere, and by subscribing to this, you're helping bring green energy to the Illinois grid. Very, very simple, very, very impactful, very, very meaningful. From a transportation standpoint, I'm sure you know about electric vehicles. If you have $40,000 sitting around and you want to go buy one of those, fantastic. But there's cheaper alternatives, like use public transit whenever possible. And those two things at the end of our legs there are very useful. Those feet could take us in a lot of different places. And not only does it help our environment and create a greener future for our kids, but it's also good for our bodies. And it's a great way to bump into people that we don't see too often with our sequestering ourselves with the pandemic. Composting, if you're in Deerfield, that's that third bin. And then recycling plastic. That's a big one. Recycle as much plastic as possible. And I'd encourage you to buy as little plastic as possible. And then the last one is plant native plants. There's a lot of beautiful plants out there that just look nice and we all are attracted to. I would, if Camilla was here, and this is her big focus, is look at the natives first. They're the ones that are the easiest to take care of. They're meant to be here. They don't need water other than what Mother Nature provides. And we're starting to rally around this idea of homegrown national park, in which, in short, what that is basically, rather than just creating these large conservation areas, which is great, we need to keep doing that. This speaks to the inside of, and this isn't our idea, this is something that's happening nationally, is that most of the land in the country, some huge percent, 80-something%, is privately owned. So if we each, in our own little lots of land, started replacing some of our lawn space with natives, we can create a national park that's homegrown, that's connected, that helps all of the living creatures thrive in the ecosystem that we've been disrupting for so long. And it's a simple thing that we could all do that has, once again, has a major impact. So with that, I'm going to pause and see if there are any questions or comments. I would love to hear from you because I've just been listening to myself for 30 minutes.
Well, this was really fantastic. I'm going to, we can close your presentation so we can see everybody's face if you'd like. Do you want me to do that or you got it? There you go. And there we have everybody. And if you